Hello, everyone. Wait just a few more moments to let people get connected up here.
Yeah, I'm letting them in now.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Vanessa with the Dallas Public Library. We do this series in partnership with the Department of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and I'll turn it over to Judy in just a second for that. Just a few housekeeping things. You will be muted and have your cameras turned off during this presentation. However, if you have any questions for the presenter, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to those after the presentation. Or if you just have any comments, like maybe you've spotted some wonderful monarchs, you can put those in the comments as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Judy and let her tell you a little bit about what their department does and introduce our speaker. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Judy Schmidt with the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. And as always, I'm so pleased to be here in partnership with the Dallas Library. And we're so glad to welcome John Watts from the Texas Discovery Garden and the State Fair, live from the State Fair today as well. What I want to say about our department is we have 8 focus areas that we talk about and a lot of messages that we deliver to people throughout the city. And they are air quality, energy, stormwater, water conservation, zero waste, urban agriculture. And, that's just part of it. And then we also have the comprehensive environmental climate action plan, little tongue tied today, that we also talk about and interface with. And that big plan then is overlaid into 17 different departments within the city and a lot of organizations throughout the city as well. So we have many opportunities to reach out and talk to our audiences. Before I give you a couple of environmental messages I want to leave you with today, I want to talk to you about the Texas Discovery Garden. And the main thing I want to say to you is that it is open all year round. So even when we had the terrible freeze in February, they were open. They had generators going. They were working on keeping everything stable within their butterfly house and doing the best they can with their gardens and their landscapes. And they did a fabulous job. And so much of it came back and the butterflies were all okay. And that happens really all year round. They have staff that take care of that. So I just want to stress that even after the State Fair is complete this time around, please plan on visiting the Texas Discovery Garden. And right now they have so many things going on. They have daily activities. At 10:15 every morning, they do have monarch tagging, and you're going to hear a lot more about that from John. He's truly an expert, a world-class expert in this category. They also have a story time at 11 a.m., butterfly release at noon, and they again have another tagging demonstration, and they look for the monarchs to tag as they're coming through and taking sustenance from their garden at 2 p.m. And then they have a cool critter encounter at 3 p.m. And one of the cool critters is actually Sunny. She's a red rat snake, and she's really friendly to people. So don't be afraid of her if you see her out. She's really very cool. The other thing that's really great about the center is it's right across from the amphitheater where the SOAR program is taking place. That's the birds that actually fly free. And that is a wonderful experience to see. So if you can, time your visit to the Texas Discovery Garden, maybe at say at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at 12:30 you can go catch SOAR just right across the walkway. Or if you're later in the afternoon, there's a SOAR program at 4:30 as well. So I just encourage you to do that. Take your friends and family. This is the last couple of days of the fair. They're so glad to be back. And the Texas Discovery Garden would love to welcome you to their beautiful center. I just want to say with the rain, it's so important to please, whether at home or if you run a business, turn your sprinklers off, because we want to conserve water every chance we get. And running the sprinklers when the land is already wet, just that water is just running off. Now, it will be clean water going into the storm drain system. We hope it's clean, but it's best to just turn the sprinklers off and make that effort. And please do that. And then also, I just want to mention, I've even had some adults say to me, I really don't do that. But turn your water off when you brush your teeth. So wet that toothbrush, get ready, then turn the water off. I know most of us have probably run the water at some time in our lives and we get like in a trance. It kind of helps with the toothbrushing. Don't do it. Turn it off. It wastes over 6 gallons of water when you do that. So then just, complete your brushing by, of course, you can turn it on then, but be sure to turn it off. And shorter showers. I was at a presentation this weekend to teens, and oh, did they have a fit when I said, try to take a 5-minute or less shower. Many of them said it was impossible for them to do. And I think you probably have had that experience with your own teenagers and people in your homes. But do what I said to them, please try to sometimes take a shower that's less than 5 minutes. But that's what we recommend. We want to save water. We want to save all of our fabulous resources. And there's just, Dallas is so really, we have so many wonderful. We have the forest, we have 6,200 acres of forest, we have the river coming through, we have ponds and lakes, and there's just so many things and so many beautiful resources. People don't think of Dallas as having them, but they're here. And it takes every one of us doing everything we can every day to take care of those resources and make sure that we have them for future generations. Yesterday, I'm kind of putting in a plug for, I guess, Blue Origin, but we all probably heard that Captain Kirk went into outer space. And when he came back, just listening to his remarks, one of the things he said really touched me so much. He said that the atmosphere is really so thin, and he just can't believe how beautiful it is, but yet how small it is in comparison to space once you get beyond it. And he was very struck by that. And he said it made him realize more than ever how vital this planet is to our life and how we need to protect it and do everything we can to do that. So thank you for your time. I'm now going to take a moment to introduce John Watts. He is a world-class entomologist and running the butterfly house at the beautiful Texas Discovery Garden. He is here today and he's going to teach us all about the Texas state insect.
Good morning.
That's my place. I just want to say that John is passionate about the biodiversity of this planet, and it's important to the overall functioning of this biosphere. So with that, and some of the other things I've said, welcome, John. Thank you so much.
Okay, good morning. I'm actually going to do this into 2 pieces here. The first one is going to be about monarchs themselves, talk about the biology and behavior and the migration phenomenon itself. And then the second PowerPoint will be about the tagging itself. So let's start with the monarchs. These are one of the most well-studied butterflies in the world. The genus and species name is Danaus plexippus. And although there are many species of butterflies that migrate, monarchs are the only ones that we know of that migrate in 2 ways instead of in one direction, say north to south or south to north. There are actually 3 species of butterflies in this genus Danaus that occur in the United States. The other 2 species, though, are much more restricted in range. The queen butterfly is the other one that you're most likely to see in this area, Danaus gallipus. It's slightly smaller, darker in coloration, and does not have the black vein scaling on the upper side of the wings. It ranges from the deep south, from South Carolina to Florida, west over to southeastern California, and on down south through South America and the West Indies. Like most of the butterflies in this genus, the males are easy to separate from the females. They have a specialized structure on the hind wing called an androconial patch. It's a little black spot located along one of the veins. And this holds pheromones that are used from abdominal hair pencils, and it's used in courtships. So here on the left, you can see a male courting a female. And on the right is actually the abdomen of a male monarch showing the extruded hair pencils. The other species is called the soldier, Danaus eresimus. It's been recorded from Florida south of Lake Okeechobee and the Rio Grande area south of South Texas, and then goes further south into Central America. It looks similar to the queen, but the underside of the hind wing has a distinct dark submedial band that you can see in the upper right picture there. Note how similar the caterpillars of both of these butterflies look to those of monarchs, because all three species feed on the same plants. They all feed on milkweeds. The monarch itself ranges from southern Canada south through the United States. The males are bright pumpkin orange on the upper surface and sport that androconial patch on the hind wing that you can see in the upper photograph here. The females are duller orange in coloration, and they have thicker dark veinings, and of course they are completely devoid of the androconial patch. Monarchs are unusual compared to the other Danaids in that they no longer court and as part of their mating process, and the males actually wrestle the females to the ground out of the air, as you can see in this picture here. It's a forced mating. She has no choice in the matter. Once they're mated, though, like other butterflies, they only mate one time. And so the females will spend the rest of their lives searching for milkweeds to lay their eggs on. Milkweeds get their name from the fact that if you break one of the leaves off, you get this white milky sap that comes out. And that has actually got heart poisons in it. And therefore it makes the monarchs themselves, including all their stages, inedible to predators. And so the caterpillars advertise this with this distinctly patterned black, white, and yellow stripes. And they possess two pair of filamentous tentacles, one at the front end and one at the tail end. They will meticulously search for and inspect actively growing or flowering milkweeds to lay their eggs on, with one exception. That's the butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. Since that one doesn't have the heart poisons in the foliage, there's not much of a stimulation there for females to lay their eggs on, since they use that to help determine that it's the right host plant. However, they will eat that plant if they were moved on to it. So the bottom right picture is the butterfly weed. The one at the top left is tropical milkweed, and the one on the right of that is one of the other native milkweeds. The larval stage lasts about 3 weeks. It will molt its exoskeleton, and we call the caterpillar's exoskeleton a skin, 4 times in order to grow. The larva will consume the old exoskeleton before resuming feeding on milkweeds. With the 5th and final molt into the pupal stage, the skin drops after the pupa, and it pushes its way out. The chrysalis is a beautiful, lovely shade of jade green, has black and metallic gold bands plus numerous gold spots, and it lasts for about 2 weeks. By the way, that's where the word chrysalis comes from. It comes from a Greek word chrysos, which means gold, because of those little gold spots. The migration phenomenon, of course, is what has engendered our most fascination with this particular butterfly. There are actually 3 separate populations of monarchs in the United States. Those east of the Continental Divide are the ones that end up in central Mexico. The ones west of the Continental Divide end up in coastal towns of Southern California. There's a 3rd population from Lake Okeechobee south that does not migrate at all, but we're not, of course, interested in those. In the northern US and southern Canada, at the last generation that normally develops in August, will begin migrating south to southwest.
Yes, let's see, do you service, of course, my phone.
I'm sorry?
I think that may have been an accident, John.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So the migration urge itself is actually controlled genetically. It's genetically programmed into the butterflies because it's never the same butterflies that go back down every year. They're always separated by a minimum of 3 generations. And what does this is the caterpillar has to be exposed to short day lengths and cool nights in order to switch the genes on. They tend to fly about 25 to 30 miles per day, feeding on favored flowers such as bonesets, mist flowers, Mexican sunflower, and especially frostweed, which blooms at exactly the right time for them as they're coming through this part of Texas. They may stay in especially rich nectar areas for a number of days to help fatten themselves up with an energy reserve to allow them to get through the winter down in central Mexico. And this is the state of Michoacan. This is where they mostly end up at. It's about 2 hours northwest of Mexico City and in the transvolcanic mountain range that runs through that area of Mexico. And when they finally end up down there, they basically congregate on the trees in huge flocks, composed of several hundred million butterflies, at least at the time when the populations were first discovered down there back in the late 70s. This is one of the towns in central Mexico outside of one of the sanctuaries called Angangueo. I've actually been to this particular town and this particular sanctuary to see the monarch phenomenon in the end of February. It's this quaint little town. By the time I went through there in the 90s, it only took you 10 minutes to walk the entire length of Main Street. That's how small the place is. But the tourism is one of the biggest aspects in order to see the monarch migration. Like all towns in Central America and Mexico, there tends to be a central fountain where everyone congregates. Every year they have a cultural festival that's done in the fall, right about at the same time that the monarchs come through. In fact, many of the indigenous peoples of past generations thought the monarchs were the spirits of their ancestors coming to visit them at the end of the harvest. So they celebrated their return every year. And today we use El Dia de la Muerte, Day of the Dead, on November 2nd as one of their celebrations as well. This particular picture is a photograph from an airplane of the south side of one of the mountains covered in monarchs. All that brown you see on those trees, those aren't leaves, those are actually butterflies. So you can, even from the air, you can see the vast numbers that are down there during that time period. They hibernate on a particular tree called an Oyamel fir tree. And again, these are on the southern sides of the mountains. That way they're protected from the cold northern winds that carry in rain and sleet in the wintertime. They normally stay till the end of February. The trails through the sanctuaries are not open to vehicles. And so visitors either have to walk in or they can ride in on donkeys, mules, or horses. Hundreds of millions of individual butterflies will cover the trees from the top of the branches to the bottoms, including the trunks. At the end of winter, they'll start becoming active again. And when they would take brief forays that go down to drink water because they've been sitting on those trees for months now, they're dehydrated, and they would prepare themselves for the return flight. It is just before they leave Mexico to head back north that they finally go and become mating in instinct. And well, once they've done that, they won't survive more than a couple more weeks. As the females are heading north in the springtime, they're going to be looking for milkweeds that are starting to grow in order to lay their eggs on. You don't normally see the return flight because they are actually doing the opposite of what they did in the fall. In the fall, they're congregating together, whereas in the spring, they're trying to spread out from each other in order for the females to not be in competition with each other over whatever milkweeds they find to lay their eggs on. They usually end up dying off before getting any further north in Texas and Oklahoma. But that generation from the eggs they've laid up to that point in the US will continue their migration when they develop into butterflies back north. There are, of course, some threats to monarchs that we are worried about. One of the biggest ones being deforestation. People down there use the trees for lumber and cooking fuel, and this allows those freezing rains to get further into the sanctuaries and kill off the butterflies. Luckily, many of the people down there are just as interested in the survival of the monarchs and have taken to replanting young fir trees to replace those that have been cut down for future conservation of the butterflies. Another threat to monarchs is the phenomenon of using GMO grain crops, and not for what reason most people think. It's not that the crops themselves are harmful to the butterflies, it's that these crops have been designed to withstand herbicides such as Roundup. And of course, farmers use these herbicides to kill the weeds in the crop rows. Milkweeds will also be killed as a result of this, and milkweeds are the only host plants known for monarchs. Luckily, milkweeds are very easy to grow from seed, and the average person can help monarchs by making sure they plant milkweeds, both the native ones as well as the tropical ones, in their gardens. And the butterflies will find them on their own and breed. In the last decade or so, we've also become apparent of the fact that another factor not often thought about is the fact when they're flying south for the winter migration into Mexico, that they need all these nectar plants to take the nectar and turn it into the fat that they use to get through the winter. So if you plant these plants that are blooming at the time they're coming south, you are giving them a good nectar source in order to engorge themselves and fill up their fat cells in their body so they can get through the whole winter. This last slide, I wanted to show you a population of monarchs that occur in Hawaii. Because of the inbreeding, there is now recessive trait for white, almost like an albino. And so the Hawaii is known for their fascinating white monarchs. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up the other PowerPoint presentation on monarch tagging itself. Let's see if I can figure out how to find this slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. Okay, so why do we tag them? We tagged them, of course, in order to figure out where they were going in the first place. That was the main reason the tagging program was originally developed. There are a number of things that we want to make sure. That the reason for the tagging is that it helps us determine the distance that they go. For instance, where you tag it from here in Texas Discovery Gardens, if they end up in the sanctuaries down there, they've traveled about, say, 1,500 miles. It also allows us to learn about the time that is required to do the migration itself. It normally takes about 2 to 3 months for them to finish the whole migration. It also allows us to determine population density, especially down there in the sanctuaries in the winter, because that's extremely important. That is the entire population of monarchs that will come up in the spring and give us the monarchs we have in our local gardens. We're also able to learn whether the winter survival of those individuals that have been tagged, if they had been found down there as well. And if they happen to be found on the way back north in the springtime, it allows us to more fine-tune the return pathways that the monarchs go through. The tagging information itself consists of a code. It is made with 4 alphabet letters followed by 3 numbers. They also want information on the date when you did your tagging. They want the sex of the butterfly, whether it's male, female. You learned from the previous presentation how to sex them. They want to know whether the monarchs themselves that you tagged were either wild caught from flowers or ones you might have raised from eggs or caterpillars. They want the location you did your tagging. They want the state, the zip code, and the country. Simple items that anyone can do. Collecting the butterflies can be somewhat challenging, but they can be done with an aerial net like this individual here who's showing the proper way of putting a net down on, say, a butterfly. Butterflies fly up, so if you hold the end of the net up as you've gone down over the butterfly, it'll fly to the end of the net where you're able to be more properly collected out of the net. You can also collect monarchs by physically grabbing them and handling them. Monarchs are tough butterflies compared to other butterflies because they are inedible to predators. They have a tougher rubbery body, so they can actually be manhandled a little bit better than other butterflies. And because they are instinctually know that they're protected from the poisons in their body, they don't move as much as other butterflies and can be approached quicker in order to grasp them. Of course, you can also breed them from the caterpillars and eggs. If you're going to do that, you need to make sure they're exposed to those conditions outside. Don't bring them indoors to breed them, because if they don't get both the conditions of the short day lengths as well as the cool nights, it won't switch those genes on. Now, the place we put it on them is on a mitten-shaped area of the hind wing called the discal cell. And we put it there because one is closer to the center of gravity for the butterfly. The tags themselves do have a little bit of weight to them, even though they're tiny. So if you put them too far out on the wings, there's an imbalance with gravity, and the butterfly can't quite figure that out. It also happens to be the strongest place on the wings because of the fact that it's surrounded by the venation of the wings. And the venation, of course, is the support structures of the wings. The best way to properly handle a monarch is to grasp them by the body or with the leading front edge of the forewings. So the one on the left is showing you the proper way of holding the butterfly body. If you hold it that way, they can't move their wings and therefore they can't be damaged. It also means you're not rubbing the scales off the wings. Without the scales on the wings are see-through, and they wouldn't be able to tell which species of butterfly they are if they come in contact with another one. The proper placement, as you can see, is in that discal cell. This person, though, seems to have been putting their tag on not quite properly because it's upside down. You want to make sure you can read it, like the one on the left photograph shows you. So here's a person doing the way I do it. I usually let my fingernails grow a little bit in order to peel the tag off and then put it on the wings that way. They suggest a toothpick, as you saw with the other one, but that doesn't work too well for me. And in any case, once you've got the tag on the butterfly, please don't do like you do on the right side, and that is put the butterfly on your fingers or on your hand. There's a reason for that. Butterflies have their taste receptors on the bottom of their feet. And since our skins produce oils, that can clog up the taste receptors, and then they have a difficult time tasting their food. Here's shows you what the old data entry forms look like. They're a little bit different now, but they still basically are asking for the same information. And once you've filled out all that information, you can go online and actually type it in online. I made copies of the data sheets, and then I print it out and write the stuff on there, and then I go back and add it on the data sheet online. It's a lot more efficient to do it that way, and you can go back in February and check on your butterflies to see if any of them are recovered down there. And there's extra place there, a recovery address for your observations there. So I am done with those. So if anyone has questions, I can see there's quite a few of them here actually. Gosh, let's see. Let's see.
If it would help, John, I could just read them out to you if that would help.
Okay, sure. I see one now. Sometimes had caterpillars look like ones you're showing with yellow and black stripes. That was Eastern black swallowtail.
All right. And someone was asking about some of the milkweed plants you mentioned, and I put the link in there for the Discovery Gardens Butterfly Garden website that has the list of plants recommended for growing for different butterflies. I don't know if you have any to add to that.
Sorry, say that again.
So someone was asking about the plants to plant for the monarchs, and I put the link in
Oh,
for the,
yes, in fact, we got another plant sale coming up, the weekend, next weekend. After State Fair is over with, we've got another fall plant sale coming up. I think this is the 24th, 23rd and 24th. We actually have quite a few native milkweeds that we sell at these plant sales. And those are really good because you don't have to do anything special with them. You don't have to water them. You don't have to fertilize them. Let nature take care of them for you.
let's see. There was also a question. I think you covered this a little bit, but about touching the wings of the butterfly.
The wings themselves are not living parts of a butterfly. They're like your fingers and hair. The only part that's alive is actually inside their body. So touching the wings doesn't actually hurt them, but because they cannot fix any tears or any of the scales rubbed off the wings, since there's nothing there to fix it with, it's why we try not to touch the wings in the first place.
Right. And there was a question about someone found a dead monarch that looked like it insides had been sucked out.
Yes, I'm
do you-
actually replying to that one
oh,
right now.
okay, you can reply that one right now. Okay. So are there things that
Interesting enough, things that are venomous can usually handle other venoms okay. So spiders will catch and eat monarchs. Yesterday, when I was out in the garden, there was a wheel bug, which is an assassin bug, feeding on one of the monarchs that it had caught on the flowers. I was wondering why the monarch was drooping off the flower with its wings open, because they don't normally do it that way. They fold their wings up above their body like most butterflies do when they're feeding. And so when I took a closer look, it was an assassin bug that had gotten onto it.
oh, wow.
Down in the sanctuaries, there are certain species of birds that have learned how to get past the poison quality of the monarchs by tearing open the abdomen and eating the fat, but leaving the rest of it alone. Since the poison's in the blood of the butterfly, they're bypassing that poison aspect by ripping the abdomen open and eating the fat out. The butterfly survives, but of course it's not going to survive for very long because it doesn't have the fat anymore to get it through the winter.
Right. And then there's a question about whether there's any if the Texas Discovery has any resources in Spanish, because there's a beautiful banner on display in the Women's Museum at Fair Park. And because, as you mentioned, the cultural significance that it has in Mexico for the monarchs that overwinter there. So are there any Spanish resources available through the Texas Discovery Gardens? Let's see. Okay. Um, so it looks like, yeah, John has answered the questions. I'm gonna have to check that out, Blanca. That sounds amazing. I haven't been to the fair this year yet. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. As the
Mhm.
butterflies as the symbols.
Yes, the
Yeah.
most famous one is Psyche, the story of Psyche, which happens to be the Greek word for butterfly and the Greek word for soul. Um, the story being that Aphrodite turned her into a butterfly out of jealousy because all the men thought she was prettier than Aphrodite. And you know how the Greek gods and goddesses were quite vain. But she took pity upon her as a result, and that's why she turned her into a butterfly in order to not punish her anymore just because she was so pretty. A lot of American Indian cultures have fascinating stories on the origin of butterflies. One of them in particular, where Coyote had thrown flowers and petals and rocks and things in a bag and to give to the children. And when the children opened it up, all that stuff turned into butterflies, which delighted the children because Coyote knew they were sad because one day they would grow old and die. And this was some way of at least staving off that thoughts of the mortality of humans by the beautifulness of butterflies themselves. All kinds of fascinating things throughout the world on butterflies in most cultures.
And you touched on this earlier in the chat, but the distinction between viceroys and monarchs, and viceroys
Yes,
actually adapted to try to kind of mimic that, right? It's like a mimicry kind of
and
thing.
indeed, it's a form of mimicry. It's not the type of mimicry that most people are familiar with, and that is where you have an inedible model and an edible mimic. Actually, both of them are inedible. They're both poisonous, but they've converged on the same pattern, which is another type of mimicry called Mullerian mimicry. And so it doesn't matter which one a bird tries out, they're going to get sick off of either type of butterfly. But the best way to separate them, if you're just curious as to the butterflies themselves, is that black line that runs through the middle of the hind wing on the viceroy, which is absent on monarch butterflies.
Awesome. Yeah, and Yvonne, the zinnias attract a lot of pollinators in my garden as well. I always grow them with my vegetables for
Yes,
that very
zinnias.
reason.
And monarchs will come to the zinnias too, especially the ones that have the central section that has the little tiny yellow flowers in them. That's where the word composite comes from, because those plants in the aster family, each one of those petals is actually a separate flower. And then the central part is composed of hundreds and hundreds of tiny flowers, a composite of them, basically.
And so the butterflies are getting the nectar out of those, correct?
Yes, and monarchs also are able to get special compounds in that nectar that add to their unpalatability.
And I know we were talking about this a little bit before the program started about the tropical milkweed. Could you go into a little bit about the what you were telling me about the drawbacks to that for the
Yes,
monarchs?
there's a love-hate thing with the tropical milkweed. It's one of the best host plants for monarchs. They grow very well on them. But there's also a bacterial infection called EO, and don't ask me to translate the scientific name of the organism. That's what it comes from. It can survive off the tropical milkweeds if they don't get killed off in the wintertime. All species of milkweeds are perennials, but the tropical milkweed, because it comes from the tropics, can't survive the winters here. All the native milkweeds, though, do survive the winters here. They freeze down to the ground and come back up from the root every year. Um, the In the springtime, you can actually grow the tropical milkweeds here in order to give monarchs that extra special amount of spring host plant so that they can build up a larger population quickly in order to get back up north where most of the native milkweeds that they breed on are more common. It's in the fall that you want to chop back the tropical milkweed, usually in September, so that it's out of the way when they come through migrating. That is, it's not growing whenever they come through, because the females will only lay their eggs on the new growth of milkweeds. All the native milkweeds in our area stop blooming in June or so, for the most part. That way, the monarchs aren't triggered in staying here and reproducing continuously. There forces them to migrate north to find more milkweeds to breed on. So that would be another reason why we want that. For the native milkweeds, the best ones to plant in your garden are the antelope horn and the green milkweed. Both of those are very good host plants for monarch caterpillars and are fairly easy to get a hold of. One of the challenges to the native milkweeds is that the seed must be stratified. It must go through winter conditions to germinate. The tropical milkweed does not have that, which is why you can grow them any time of the year, and therefore that's why they're most often found available at nurseries. That should have answered the question about the tropical milkweeds as well as the native ones in this area. There you go. Very good, Vanessa. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm a
You're
visual
so
person.
fast.
It comes from working on a reference desk for a number of years.
Good for you. I'm still a hunt and peck type person when it comes to typing. And I don't like sending words that are incorrectly spelled.
Oh no, definitely not. So yeah, definitely. So you said that all the milkweeds that are native would be perennials.
All milkweeds are perennials, including the tropical milkweed, but it doesn't normally survive all winters here because it's not where it comes from. It doesn't ever get exposed to winter temperatures to begin with, so it's not adapted to our climate. I'm not sure what that question about are we looking at names is.
I think she may, or they may not be able to see the presenter. I turned my camera back on. My internet has been a little bit unstable, so I had turned mine off, but I turned it back on. Can you see us, Melinda? Well, does anybody else have any questions while we have the butterfly expert here? I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
John
actually went through that a lot faster than I thought I would on the talks there. Yeah, but we always like to have plenty of time for questions from people.
Yes, and if you have some non-monarch questions, I'm sure John would be happy to answer those as well.
Yeah, that happens a lot whenever I do these things.
You have a lot of other types of butterflies in the Discovery Gardens as well, right? Not just the monarchs. Oh, Yvonne has a good question about what pesticides kill monarchs.
Oh, yeah.
Any pesticide that will kill an insect will kill a monarch.
No.
Because they're insects. So, like even the spraying they do for the mosquitoes, because they want to kick down the West Nile, that would affect monarchs too if it ends up drifting, the mist ends up drifting onto them.
What about like organic pesticides like neem oil? I guess it would be the same thing because they're designed
It
to
would
kill
do the same thing, but in that case, the neem oil would work on the caterpillar. It would, because unless I don't see how it would get on the butterfly itself. Yeah, any of those work. would kill monarchs, any pesticide.
I know a
They're
lot
not
of
good
the.
for us either. I mean, we
I
have the
know
same nervous system.
this is a very good point. Yeah, and even with the organic pesticides, like you have to watch out because yeah, like you said, they're not discriminate. Like I know a lot of people like to use BT for the soft-bodied insects, and
Now,
that will.
BT is not actually a pesticide. It's actually a living organism. It's a bacteria. And that particular one is Bacillus thuringiensis. That's what BT stands for. It's mostly a caterpillar bacterial disease. It would not affect adult monarchs, but of course you want to keep the caterpillars because of what turn into butterflies. But you can spot treat other caterpillars with the BT and wash it off the plants once they've killed the caterpillars if you're worried about it moving over to your milkweeds.
I know there is a lot of things in the gardening community this year because the army worms
Mhm.
were rather prolific, and a lot of people didn't realize that those were caterpillars.
Yep, yep. And that they came with a big population because we had so much rain in the spring and early summer. That's what the cutworms eat a lot of different plants. They're polyphagous. They eat a lot of different species of plant compared to monarchs, which only do milkweeds and nothing else. Where can you see monarchs most in Dallas? Gosh, there are a lot of places. Here in our gardens, they're very common right now because of the frostweed. I've heard they were quite common in Fort Worth as well earlier last week. Any place that has a lot of nectar plants for butterflies would be a good place to look for them. Even the local parks, and I've got them in my yard. I got lots of Greg's mistflower in my yard right now, which they love.
That's a pretty flower too. It's a good
Mhm.
landscaping plant in addition to the butterflies loving it.
Yep.
Let's see. Any more questions about monarchs or butterflies?
I see somebody has a, we taught he was sharing slides. I did share the slides earlier whenever I had it open. Am I supposed to pull it up for them somehow or another?
Oh no, I think they were just missing out on more slides maybe while we were
Oh,
talking.
okay, okay.
Yeah, they're looking for the name of the flower, the Greg's Miss.
Okay, I'm gonna put down the two favored nectar plants in this area.
And oh yeah, the aphids.
The
Aphids.
the oleander aphids, which are what that person is asking about, they are not anything to worry about. They don't cause enough damage to the plants for them to be of any worry to you.
And I believe the aphids that are milkweeds. So I looked this up. If I remember correctly, the
Oops.
only feed on like
You've gone out.
milkweeds specifically. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
We can.
I wouldn't worry about those the aphids on your milkweeds. The ladybugs and the lacewings should take care of most of those when they build up huge populations on there. Like I said, they don't seem to damage the nutritional value of the milkweed plant itself. And the monarchs themselves will eat the aphids. The caterpillars will eat the aphids when they're eating the leaves if the aphids don't move away.
Sorry about that. I had internet is not working so well today. All right. So, oh yeah, aphids squishing. Yeah, if you're really worried about the aphids, I just use a little bit of soapy water to wash them off sometimes if I see a few of them, and I find that works pretty well. But like John said, the ladybugs, I had aphids on some plants early in the spring, and ladybugs took care of them. Right.
Um,
If y'all can hear me, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all of the great questions. And thank you, John, for all the wonderful information about the monarchs and the tagging program, which is fascinating. It's a lot of really good data that helps.
Yes, we wish them all the best on their journey as they head that way. Every time I see one, I'm just like, go, 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 make it, get there. So we wish them the best and thank you so much for your time. This has been a real pleasure and so informative.
Oh, you're
And,
welcome.
I'm going to put, if you're interested in where you can see some great fall foliage and maybe even some of the fall blooming flowers that John mentioned, this coming Monday, we're going to have a Grow With Us that's will take us on the best places to see all that around Texas. I'm going to put the link in the chat here. Although I don't think the link copied, so let me see if I can grab the link real quick. We're a little, we complain about the hot weather here in Texas, but we're a little bit blessed because we can grow a lot of things in the fall that they can't grow in other places. So kind of a trade-off there. Okay, sorry, grabbing the link. Oh, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, and
so,
then you're going to
okay.
mention, Vanessa, that John will be back next week for Earth Day Every Day as well.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
You've got Flower Power on there.
That's right. That one will be on insect and plant pollination adaptations.
I know. I see questions all the time about what do I put in my garden to get this or that. And so you're going to talk to us about that. So I can't wait to hear what to put in the landscape, what kind of plants that will then draw. Yeah.
Pretty much anything you would plant to attract butterflies or hummingbirds will attract a lot of other insects too, other
critters.
pollinators. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, thank you. We look forward to welcoming you back.
Well, you're welcome.
All right.
Definitely. All right. Thank y'all so much, everyone, for joining us today again. And yeah, come back next Thursday to hear more from John about how you can make your yard very butterfly friendly.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.